Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another broadcast of Tap Into the Truth. Today we're talking about why the so-called fiscal cliff deal should fail. We're just going to jump right into it. We're going to go over a few of the points of this supposed deal and maybe even help you to understand why the House decided not to even vote on it today. Number one, there is absolutely no significant attempt to address the real problem that our government has with money, and that is overspending. The ratio breaks down with the deal that was offered of $41 to 1. If you're going to get $41 in additional revenue, as they want to call it, and when the government says revenue right now, that's code word for taking money out of your pocket. They're getting that additional money, and then they're going to take $1 off of the top of the additional spending that they were planning on increasing, not actually reducing what they're already spending, and they're already spending too much of your money. Also, to add insult to injury, absolutely no effort to deal with the, wait for it, credit ceiling. Ooh, come on, folks. There is absolutely no seriousness on the parts of the people on the left in trying to even remotely appear as though there's any kind of fiscal responsibility here. They want you to believe that they can just continue spending and just hand out cash however to whomever and everything will be okay. They honestly think that they're going to continue to stay in power by handing out cell phones and promising you cars and telling you everything's going to be okay. It is completely and totally unreasonable for someone to expect our government to be able to continue this way. We've already had 4 years of no budget, only passing continuing resolutions. And what that means is they agreed to continue spending and increases in spending at the rate they had been doing before. And this deal is not a great deal in so much as there's still a lot of tax increases here. This is still folks that are making high dollar amounts. I mean, there were a few good things, like the fact that supposedly permanent, although, keep in mind, certainly not non-amendable, just permanent, at least until they decide they want to make amendments, to things like the estate tax, better known as the death tax. This is money that in many cases has already been taxed a multitude of times, and they're going to tax it one more time just because it changes hand again. Now, they were able to supposedly permanently fix it so that at least your first $5 million and whatever you may be getting in this estate is untouchable. Now, this is a compromise that's intended to try and protect folks like the old family farm or the people inheriting the family business. And loopholes like that needed to be put in place, but, you know, how about this? What if we just do away with the death tax altogether, ladies and gentlemen? Would it really cause that much of a detriment to spending? Well, yeah, it would cause a detriment to spending for the government, wouldn't it? They're still desperate to find new ways to garner more and more revenue. Again, that's taking money out of your pocket. And believe me, I don't care how much money you make right now. They've set their target at $400,000 or more. But it's only a matter of time before they creep that back down to the 250 mark. And once they hit that, how long do you honestly think it's going to be until they creep lower in that? And this is just targeting for this tax rate. They really want to come after you with even more. Believe me when I tell you, the people on the left that are in office want to take as much as they can from everybody so that they can continue to buy the votes of the stupid. And it is stupid to keep voting for these people just because you think they're going to give you something. You, your children, your neighbors, your friends, your family, your church, all would be better off the less the government was in your day-to-day life. The government is supposed to be limited. It is supposed to be there to provide a few basic necessities and then get out of your way. You cannot enjoy the fruits of your labor because the government is going to come take it. And the more successful you are, the more they're going to come take. You've got the occupier of the White House who constantly keeps using the phrase, their fair share, when it comes to the wealthy, the rich, when in truth, who is it that you think's paying all the taxes anyway? It's certainly not the teenage mother at the welfare office signing up for food stamps. She's not paying any taxes. It's certainly not the meth-addicted guy who's only working some minimum wage job long enough to get his next hit, and then he's going to disappear for a few days and probably get fired. He's not paying any taxes. There might be some withholding, but believe you me, when it's all said and done, he's going to get everything back that he paid in, isn't he? And probably then some. That's another one of the issues. They extended the child income credit. Ladies and gentlemen, I got to tell you, I'm not a particularly wealthy individual. I'm not. In fact, I've had severe struggles in this past year. I had a reduction in my own income, and I've had a hard time adjusting to it. And I know that I'm just fortunate to still have a job in this current economy, and I know a lot of you out there are feeling the same pain. I have lost things that were dear to me this past year, things that are still just things that can be replaced, and I'm back nose to the grindstone trying to earn back those things. I'm not sitting around, certainly not waiting for the government to give it to me, and I don't expect you or the person that lives across the street from me to turn over whatever they have just to make it easier for me, because that's not the way it's supposed to be. The earned income credit is a nice thing for people who don't have a lot. It's hard to turn that down. I understand it. But let's step outside of our own personal situation for a moment and let's ask the very real question of, where's that money coming from? Would the government have more money to run the programs that it needs to if it wasn't just giving away money? Because that's what that amounts to. A credit, one in which they will give you a rebate for. That's just a cash giveaway. This is a use your brain moment, folks. This is something that we need to step outside of ourselves and think about logically. That's very unpopular. I know that. Anytime we talk about cutting any kind of entitlement, it's very unpopular. But guess what? The earned income credit is an entitlement. It is just a straight-up cash giveaway, and it needs to come to an end, because how much easier would it be for our government to balance its budget if it wasn't taking X amount of $1 million a year, just handing it out because you had a kid? And again, don't get me wrong. If the government wants to throw into the tax system, let's add to this wonderful mess of the tax code that's a freaking stack of 3 filing cabinets worth of paper as it is. They want to throw in as many deductions as they can imagine. That's fine. I'm all for that. But there is absolutely no scenario that it makes any kind of remote logical sense that you should ever get back more than what you paid in. If you did not actually work a job and did not have any withholding, then why should you be able to file a return and get your credit? You didn't do anything. You didn't pay in anything. Your refund should be zero. I mean, this is part of the reason why I'm actually a strong supporter of the fair tax. The fair tax, which you have been told over and over again, if you have paid any attention, if you've listened at all, puts an unfair burden on the poor. If they would pass it as it's been written, and that's always the tricky part, I understand that. If they would pass it the way it was written, what you would have is a prebate paid out at the beginning of the month that roughly estimates what you would pay in the sales tax, that would be the fair tax, for all the things that are reasonable for you to have. Now, there'd be a dollar amount that's accessible, and there'd be judgment involved with that, and there would ultimately be arguments as to how much that should be. But if you are below a certain economic income level, you would get this check at the beginning of the month, and it would essentially serve the purpose of being your rebate, but you get it up front. So it actually would help you to go buy things, and it's intended only to hit those things that you'll have to have: clothing, food, shelter. Now, anything else that you go buy is on you, and you should expect to pay a tax too. That's part of what makes it fair, that everybody is helping to pay part of the burden. Everyone is paying their fair share. But if you're below a certain economic level, then you don't have to pay the taxes on certain items that are necessities for your survival. If you can then afford other things, then you're managing your money well enough that you can afford to contribute. And even then, the tax rate is relatively low. Yes, this is an additional sales tax that would go on everything, and the argument there is, well, it increases the cost of everything. Well, another wonderful little part of the fair tax, the way it's written, is the fact that it removes corporate taxes, so that if you're a company that sells pre-made coffee in a styrofoam cup, you don't have to pay an additional tax burden to the person that manufactures your styrofoam cup, to the person that manufactures your plastic lid, to the person that grows your coffee beans, or the person that processes your coffee beans. You actually have what every product in the store has, is embedded taxes. And by embedded, what we mean is the company that they buy their supplies from have to pay taxes. So they have to roll in those taxes as part of the price that they're charging that next person they sell to. And everybody down the line embeds a little more tax. Most of the studies that have been done, and thank you, Mr. Neil Bortz, sorry that you're retiring from the airwaves, will be missed. Mr. Neil Bortz did extensive work in researching it, and in most instances, the things that average Americans buy, the reduction in the cost of doing their business